Hey guys, this is Gabriel Lorenzi, creator of the blog Grupo Dicas, one of the biggest travel blogs in the world, and today I'm here to talk to you about how to set up your whole trip to Europe step by step. So this will be very cool, useful tips that will make a difference for you to organize your entire trip. So check out the video, give us a like to the video, subscribe to the channel, and buckle up guys, this is gonna be good. Well, we decided to make this video that is very cool and with all our tips and experiences that we have acquired over the years in our travels to put together a step-by-step right for you to plan your entire trip through Europe. It's all the services you need to hire, the tips you have to know, and finally everything you need to take into consideration to plan your entire trip to Europe by yourself. This video will be similar to the video we've already made with tips to save a lot in your entire European trip, because we'll talk about items step by step you need to hire, the services, tickets, car rental, travel insurance, cell phone chips, accommodation, and finally everything, but always also focusing on how to save a lot, getting the best price and good services that we have already tested and that are reliable. So they are very similar videos. This one is very cool and you see that you will be able to plan your whole trip without any problems. We are focusing more on the services because we are not going to focus so much on itineraries because they vary a lot. Each one knows where they want to go. There are several countries, several cities, and there is no way we can tell you where you have to go in Europe. There are people who will make a 10-day trip and want to visit countries in 6 cities. You end up traveling a lot and you end up not taking advantage of each city because there is the plane trip, there is the time you lose checking in, packing, there's the checkout to leave the hotel, get back to the hotel, settle in and get to know the city. In short, try to stay at least 2 or 3 days in each city when it's very good. When it's a big city and touristic like Paris, Rome, Barcelona and Lisbon, try to stay at least 4 days. It's good for you to know everything if you can, 5 but at least 4, otherwise it ends up being busy, you ended up not enjoying your trip very much. So organize yourself. There's no way we can recommend an itinerary because there are millions of itineraries to Europe and there are many destinations there, so it varies from person to person. These kind of tips we're gonna give you, it's up to you to see if it's worth it or not. A point that interferes a lot in the value and cost of your total trip, which begins before the search for services, everything is the month that you travel. If you have the date flexibility, if you have not yet booked your travel date, try to travel in the off-season months. The months of high season end up being much more expensive. In some cases, some services double in price, so if you can travel in the off-season months, it will help a lot. In Europe in general, especially in countries that are a little lower and a little hotter, the European summer is the most expensive time of all. That's the end of June there, taking July, August and the beginning of September. July and August are the months where the prices are all up there, so if you can travel during the low season, you will already save a good part of your money. The season influences a lot on your trip, you have to pay attention to that. The first item you have to think about on your trip, and it's usually what we buy first, is the airline ticket. And it's usually the most expensive item on the trip. There's no way you end up spending a lot of money on the tickets, but you can save a lot. There are some great tips that help you save a lot on airline tickets for all of Europe. One of them is use an airline ticket price comparator. There are some on the market. We recently used one that has excellent prices. We have bought our last tickets there for the last 3 or 4 years, always through there, so we like them very much. I'll leave the link in the video description along with all the others organized here. Don't worry, they will all be down here. You enter and put the date of your trip. It already does a search in our airline, so you can search all of them at once. You don't need to search in each airline before you see the best price, everything, and compare. It already finds better prices because it has a very good negotiation with the airlines because of the volume. It's one of the best, so it has very good prices. The prices are all there with taxes included. Do a research because it finds much cheaper airline tickets and give preference to Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, which are usually the cheapest day to travel. Usually on weekends and Friday they end up being a little more expensive, and also night flights, they are usually more expensive. So also look there for afternoon flights, which are usually cheaper. And there's also the tip about airports that are closed. What happens, the countries in Europe are very close, and usually you get to know more than one country on the same trip. So for example, you are wanting to go to London, want to go to Paris, and sometimes there's a much cheaper ticket to Portugal or Spain, which are closer to South America because they're lower. Sometimes they have more flights and promotions, so you can buy a ticket to one of these countries and from there you get an internal flight that's very cheap. It's an absurd deal compared to an international flight. The international flights in Europe have the airlines that are called low cost. They are the cheapest, and there's also the train that works super well in Europe, so you can go from one place to another. So also check the airports to the other tourist cities near where you're going. If you're finding a bit expensive for your destination, look around and try to set up arriving and departing from other places. Usually the one closest to South America are a little cheaper, but there are other very good airports like Amsterdam and Paris, because as the amount of flights is absurd from South America to there end up being flights even cheaper than others that are a little closer. So make a research in all the destinations that sometimes you can change 1 or 2 days of your trip and save good part of the money with the airline tickets. This is going to save a lot of money for you your entire trip. And a cool tip that works for the airline tickets, car rentals, and lodging is to buy as much as in advance as possible. Most of the time you always save a lot if you buy as much in advance as possible. There are people who sometimes prefer to leave it a little bit closer. From our experience, it was a bad idea. We paid much more when it was closer to the trip, so we always buy as soon as possible. We already guarantee it. If the dollar is high or the euro is high, this is about waiting for it to go up or down. It can go down as well as up, so we always buy early as possible to guarantee the best price. Most of the time, that's what works. And since we're talking about trains, the trains in Europe, for those who don't know, are very good. They are fast, they are high-speed trains. They connect almost all cities in all countries. You don't need to check in or check out like you do in the airplane. So you arrive 15 minutes early and you can go straight to the car. It's a little more practical and a lot cheaper. So make a research on the train options in the routes you're going to take, which sometimes ends up being much cheaper. A tip to save money is also to use the price comparator like the one for airline tickets. There is also the train price comparator site, which is the biggest price comparison site for trains in Europe. We will leave the link here in the description of the video and there on our website in the tips group. It also has everything explained. You enter the date and it shows you the route, all the best companies that do this route, and always with the best price. It's reliable because it's the biggest in Europe. So take a look here, because traveling by train sometimes you save much more than by plane or car. So take a look here, because traveling by train sometimes you save a lot more than traveling by plane. And to finish this part about logistics, travel and transportation, car rental is also very important in several cities in Europe. In Portugal, it's very nice to go to the Algarve. In Italy, people go all over to Tuscany. And finally, in Germany, there are the autobahns that have no speed limit. There are several nice places that people end up renting the car, and rent a car you can save a lot using the price comparator too. This is where we save the most. The difference is sometimes very big and we are even impressed. So use the price comparison too. We'll leave the link here. There's a very good one that compares all car rental companies, as there are many good car rental companies. There is Alamo, Hard, Six, Europe Car. You have a lot of good ones. What is the name of? There are several very good car rental companies, so you can search them all. The one with the best price, go there and guarantee it. You get the best price. And also a good tip is the GPS. Usually the rental companies, when you make the reservation on the internet, already offer you to rent the GPS too, so you can get around and get to the places. But the cost is 7 or 6 euros per day. At the end of the trip, it ends up being very expensive. And what happens? A cool tip: buy a prepaid internet chip to use your cell phone out there. The chip that we'll recommend here in the video as well. We'll give you the chip tip. It ends up being much cheaper than renting the car's GPS. You use your cell phone as if it were the GPS, and you can still use the internet on your cell phone at will and for the whole trip. So it's much cheaper to buy the chip, not to rent the car's GPS. In advance notice is also fundamental for the car. Rent it as soon as possible because it's really worth it. And now talking about lodging. Lodging ends up being an expensive item in a trip, especially in Europe. There are some touristy destinations, and the more touristy cities are, always a little more expensive. So try to get a little bit out of the touristy center. So do some analysis. We have articles about where to stay in each touristy destination of Europe. Try to get away from this region a little, not too much, because you end up being far from the tourist attractions and end up losing a lot of time. The logistics are very big and it's not worth it, but try to get away from the tourist spots. Research a lot, and there are always plenty of hotels available. The sooner you do the research, the more hotels you'll find and the lower the price, because it follows the same scheme as airline tickets. The closer you get to the airport, the higher the price goes. So try to search for several nice and touristic regions, get out of the main tourist center, try to book in advance, and also use the search engines. We'll leave it attached here, the link to the one we use, which is the largest in the world. It has the largest number of hotels and always has the best prices, and a nice detail that it has in most cases is free cancellation. So you go there now, see, make a reservation, the cancellation is free, and then you get closer to the trip, you do a search again. If there is something nicer, a better price or a better hotel, you cancel the previous one and make a new one, but at least you're guaranteed. You don't run the risk of prices skyrocketing and you end up without good option. And speaking of the chip, try to use the internet abroad. You need to activate either your international roaming with the plan made in your country. If it's a terrible idea, the worst idea of all. We did this the first time and we really regretted it. The bill ends up being much more expensive, and you have the option to buy an international prepaid chip. You can buy abroad a chip that works in Europe, or you can buy it in your country. They delivered it to us here at home. We received it and we arrived there using the cell phone working perfectly. It's very good, and we can do everything with the internet on the cell phone. We have tested many chips, and lately we are really liking one that we're using every trip, and everywhere we've traveled it works super well, especially in cities in the countryside that we went to, Germany, Italy, and even Greece. It worked great every time. The signal is excellent. They have customer service and 24-hour chat. They delivered it to your house in a few days. The price was very good, so we highly recommend. I'll leave the link with the others down here in the description. It's worth it. The price is good, and you end up being able to use your... A cool tip that also seems a little funny, but that saves you a lot of money, is with water. A lot of people don't know, but when you arrive in Europe, we did this the first time a few times without knowing. You ask for a bottle of water at a restaurant, which is a bottle of water. They bring you a bottle that usually costs about 7 euros each. If you're going to be there for 10 days and you order a bottle for lunch and dinner, you pay 140 euros for water. That's about 122, 128 dollars depending on the exchange rate. What many people don't know is that in Europe and in the United States too, the sink water is highly treated. Everybody drinks it without any problem. So if you get there and ask for a tap water or just a glass of water, they bring you tap water, which has no cost and is totally courtesy of the restaurant. You don't pay for all those euros for a simple bottle of water, so you end up getting an important saving even in the end. People think it's a joke and sometimes they laugh, but if you do the math, it ends up being a big saving, especially if you're in a group with many people there or with your whole family. Tap water can save you a good amount of money instead of buying a bottle of water. And a good tip to save money with souvenirs is to always try to buy in stores that are a little further away from the tourist center. For example, in Rome, when we went there, we were in the main area of the city, and in the tourist center we went in, there are those souvenirs that are always the same in every store. We didn't buy them. We walked a little more for 40 minutes. We ended up leaving this tourist area and we got to another one where the prices were almost half. It was absurd. We ended up buying all the souvenirs and souvenirs to bring to the people and to keep as a souvenir. We saved a lot, so try to get out of the stores that are inside the tourist attractions or in the more touristy neighborhoods and go a little further out. And it's good for restaurants too. If you move away a little bit, restaurants always end up being a little bit cheaper than in the tourist centers of European cities. So you have to pay attention to these stores and so not to cost a lot more. And follow us on social networks. We're always traveling around the world trying to show tips in a nice way and our routine in a very relaxed way, because we can't travel 360 days a year either. We have our routine here in Brazil, but we also try to travel as much as possible to show travel tips. And if you like or dislike the video, and if you have any cool tips to share about Europe, leave us a comment or send us a direct message on social networks. We like this interaction, and if you need help planning your trips, send it to us and we will gladly help you. And here on the side, I'll leave some other cool videos for you to plan while your trip to Europe and not have any problems. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Have nice trips, you all.